Okay, so this was my first pack in the first draft in the Arena Open. The Elder Dragon War is not a card that you should pass for like any common or uncommon, I think, probably including Chaplain, but if you're really into to Chaplain, I could see taking it over the Elder Dragon War. At this point, I've come down a lot on Chaplain. I think the format's kind of caught up to it in terms of like just people understanding how to build decks that can compete with it, and I prefer the flexibility of the Elder Dragon War to Chaplain. Regardless, there's not a Chaplain in this pack, so the Elder Dragon War is the clear pick. Um, Notably, I think the best cards being passed are all blue: Balmor, Lookout, and Tolarian Terror. The other notable is probably Argivian Cavalier. Um, I don't. I'm not like super optimistic about tabling anything interesting from this pack. Uh, with luck, I'd get a land, but that seems unlikely. Um, let's see, how many good cards are there? One, one and a half. Uh, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's like Warhorse and Thrill that I'd need to be taken over land to get them back. So I'm not really loving any of the other options. I'm not really loving my odds of tabling something good. So pack's not telling me a lot about what I'm going to get as a second pick out of this pack, but I like starting with the Elder Dragon Workhorse. So here, I was not expecting to try to go into red-green from the Elder Dragon War, but I think Sprouting Goblin is the strongest card in this pack. The alternative, as I see it, would be Destroy Evil. I don't think anything else is close to those two. I took the Sprouting Goblin, but for me, it could kind of go either way on Sprouting Goblin or Destroy Evil. Sprouting Goblin is a stronger card than Destroy Evil, I think, even though Destroy Evil is great. But Sprouting Goblin is a serious commitment to having both early red and early green, whereas Destroy Evil is extremely flexible. There are really no other cards that are close in consideration to those two for me. Third pick for me was between Tangled Islet and Tolarian Terror, and I thought this pick was pretty hard. I think Tolarian Terror is really good, but with Sprouting Goblin pulling me toward base red-green, while I respect the like Teamer Tricks deck that can use Tolarian Terror well, I don't know that deck super well, and I think that I have to kind of be exactly that for my cards to come together properly here. Whereas Islet is going to be a good thing to have in basically any Sprouting Goblin deck, because Sprouting Goblin is presumably going to be a like red-green domain deck, and those are going to value lands, especially lands that tap for green. So I went with the Islet to just kind of like maximize flexibility here, but I don't feel very confident in it being right over the Tolarian Terror. The other card that I could see taking is the Vine Wall. If I were like really committed to, I want to be like serious domain, like I want to, actually, like I want to lean toward having cards that I'm casting in every color, and I need a card that's going to fix harder than a dual land does. You could take the Vine Wall here, but I think that that's like with the Tolarian Terror, kind of choosing a specific lane in a spot where I felt like there was more value to staying open with the land. This next pack was a more clear land pick for me. I think Bite Down and Flowstone Infusion are like on the table, but neither. They're kind of like low priority removal spells for me, even though they're like among the better non-lightning strike. They're like the best non-lightning strike options at common in base red-green, but I have no problem splashing for removal, and red-green dual land is the best dual land available for me based on what I know right now. And I thought that it was more important to prioritize lands than like second string removal spells at this point. Basically the same pick here. I can either take another land in the colors that I've established or a Flowstone Infusion. And I continue down the path of, even though I don't have any blue spells yet, I'll just kind of solidify Temur mana. I'm recording this for YouTube, but I'm also streaming this. So kind of trying to navigate directly interacting with chat versus like monologuing here. There's a question about why red green over green black when we're mostly red already. I would say that I took red green over green black because I'm mostly red. I know that my deck is going to want red mana. I don't know that my deck is going to want black mana. And even if I do end up wanting black mana, if I'm playing a card that can search for a basic land, like the Weatherseed Treaty or Scout, then if I have to like play a swamp and end up seeing too many black duels, I might have more black sources than I need. Whereas with like Sprouting Goblin Elder Dragon War, there's no chance that I'm going to have too many red or green lands for what I'm trying to do. So definitely better to take duels of colors you are over colors that you might become. So the tributary here is, again, I think it's just the optionality and solidifying the kind of like direction that I'm in is more important than any of these spells. So this is I thought pretty close between Magnagoth Century and Idyllic Beachfront. Magnagoth Century is a like pretty solid creature in kind of the green-based domain decks, especially if they're more controlling. It's less good in the like tricks-based aggressive version because it's like it doesn't have trample, and you really want to prioritize trample in those decks. Like I think those decks actually prefer the red 3/4 trample enlist to Magnagoth Century. Whereas the more controlling decks prefer Magnagoth Century because they value the reach. That said, I think Magnagoth Century is a replacement level creature, and I think at this stage I'm still at if I prioritize lands now, I'll be able to prioritize like stronger, like top tier removal and strong uncommons later. So took the beachfront here. So this is between Gaia's Might, Librarian, and Illusionist, I guess. I have 3 blue duels, and I'm looking to be a bunch of colors, so Illusionist can help with the mana in a pretty reasonable way. But also, what I have is a bunch of duels and red and green cards, and that means that I could easily be like the Tricks aggro deck, and Gaia's Might's going to be just like a really good rate in my deck regardless. So I thought that the ceiling on Gaia's Might here was really high, and the floor was, pretty okay. So Gaia's Might here. So this is not the pack that I opened. This is a different Cleaving Skyrider. So notably, I might see a Cleaving Skyrider next pick since no one at the table is like super into it. Not that that really affects me in any way. Given the lands that I had, Extinguish, which is the best card here by a lot, seemed pretty hard to cast. And if I'm doing like Temur tricks, Shore Up is pretty good for a turn where you're going for the kill. So I felt like Extinguish was unlikely to make my deck, and Shore Up had a relatively high ceiling. And then the only other cards that would matter would be like Shield Wall if I were trying to like stay open to becoming walls. But as I mentioned, I'm a little bit lower on that archetype than I used to be. So I liked Shore Up as being it's good for protecting the dragon token just to begin with, but it'll be very good if I either get more strong creatures or end up really leaning into the Temur Trick space, which I'm really well set up for. So I mentioned that I thought it might be somewhat hard to table one of the lands from the pack that I opened. I guess I didn't anticipate Linebreaker Bailoff getting taken. Um, this isn't a card that I prioritize, but it's been reasonable against me, and I've seen a decent number of people play it, so maybe that was an oversight. I didn't like look at the average taken or anything. So both Linebreaker Bailoff and Scout the Wilderness were taken over Green Duel, which is a pick I would very rarely make either of those picks. But obviously very happy to get the Islet back. Sojourner here is great. Really happy to pick this up given the direction that I'm going. The Tribute is also notably late, especially with no black cards having been taken out of this pack. But I would rather take, like, if I end up having black mana in my deck, that means Sojourner is going to have the ability to be fully on, and it's also like a nice big creature that lives through the Elder Dragon War. So I thought that was better than taking Tribute to try to splash. Similar situation. The black cards are fine. Negate doesn't involve going into black, and I am coming around on like maybe playing one main deck negate sometimes, and it's also a pretty good sideboard card in best of 3. So noteworthy that it's all black cards here, especially with what I've been seeing. The known missing has shown very few black cards, and there have been a lot of black cards in the pack, so black is underdrafted at this table. I'm not really in a position to take a ton of advantage of that outside of, well, maybe I should plan to be open to going into like 4 or 5 color rather than staying strict Temur. And then whatever, I take a random card here. I mean, Cult Conscript's stronger than Battle Rage Blessing. I don't feel strongly that this is right. You could argue that Battle Rage Blessing is more likely to be good in like a base Temur deck, since this is a card that can be useful to cast in the late game where Cult Conscript can't. This pick might be objectively wrong. Especially since, yeah, I think this pick was wrong. I think I probably should have taken Battle Rage Blessing. I would rather pass the strong black card to put the person next to me into like looking for early black mana. I should have given this away, even though it's the stronger card. If I were playing in pod, then it's reasonable to take the Cult Conscript because it's a card that's actually pretty scary for me. But given the situation in this draft, I should have taken the Battle Rage Blessing. Automatic Librarian can be pretty useful for these multicolor decks as a card you can always cast that can help find your missing colors. So I'm happy to see that late. And then there's a stick. Not super excited about taking a land that doesn't contribute to casting any of my spells as a first pick, but I think this pack was really weak. I think Essence Scatter and Elvish Hydromancer and arguably Rada are, I guess there's also Bite Down. Like, there are a bunch of okay cards here. But none of them that I thought were better than taking a land, especially given how open black is. Being able to splash black cards is valuable, and then if nothing else, it contributes to domain for my Sojourner and Gaia's Might. And in these kind of like mid-range domain decks with a million tap lands, I think that you end up spending, like, it's hard to leave your mana open because you can't really come out ahead because you spend so much mana on tapped lands. And I think that makes Essence Scatter a lot worse. Essence Scatter is better when you're ahead so that you can afford to leave your mana up to stop your opponent from catching up. Whereas if you're behind, you can't really afford to pass with an Essence Scatter, and playing a bunch of dual lands kind of naturally leads to you being behind in a way that makes it hard for me to fit Essence Scatter into my domain decks. And then while I have some strong cards, like, really I just have the Elder Dragon War, and making another 4/4 dragon is good, but it's not really like the point of the Elder Dragon War. The point of the Elder Dragon War is you get a whole bunch of different kinds of value. So point is, I don't have any amazing targets for Hydromancer, and this is also a card with like pretty bad stats. So fine to just take the land there. Here, Haughty Djinn is asking something of my mana. It's not asking a ton in terms of like going out of my way, given that I already have a bunch of blue dual lands, and I just don't have very many spells. So like what my mana is trying to do is not very well established, and I think Haughty Djinn is powerful enough to be worth staking a claim on my mana. Also plays really, really well in the Temur tricks deck that I'm, very much thinking I might be here. I think this is basically just a better option than Academy Wall, and I'm, doing pretty well on having duels. Like the 4 they're showing here are just, this is choosing not to show me the 6 duels that I actually have in this 17 lands view. Obviously, when I was actually drafting it, they were all in a pile. So yeah, with 6 lands already, I didn't feel like I needed to prioritize land over a semi-bomb. Been asked my opinion on Dragon Whelp. It's a smaller creature for more mana, which is quite a bit worse. So this is a pretty interesting pick. There's another great land. There's Vine Wall, which is really valuable for the fixing that I'm doing here, and there's Jodah's Codex, which Jodah's Codex has pretty bad stats, and the land is definitely like the other cards are definitely good for what I'm doing. I felt like my deck was already very able to like my mana capabilities were ahead of my mana requirements, and I was worried about spending more picks improving my mana with nothing that pays me for it. Basically, like I said, I'm going to be behind because I'm spending so much mana on tapped lands. I need my deck to have some real amount of power to make up for it, and Codex is a way to get that power. Codex asks that you have a low curve so that you can not be too far behind when you play it and actually use the cards that you're drawing. But nothing in my deck is at odds with that. I have the Elder Dragon War to catch up if I'm behind, and I don't have any expensive cards. I'm planning to play the Sojourner for 3 or 4 mana. So I can take the Codex here and just continue to prioritize cheap spells and especially cheap removal and use it well. And I felt like this was more in line with the needs of my deck at this point than improving my mana further. So here, Rona's Vortex is a great removal spell. It asks me to splash black, but I'm pretty open to that. The Codex and Sojourner want me to be domaining anyway. I have a Haunted Mire for my Sprouting Goblin to find. This is a similar situation where my options are basically to improve my mana with another dual land or a Vine Wall. Or I guess I could take like a Sunbathing Rootwalla if I want to try to stay in the like Temur aggro type space. But Rona's Vortex as like mostly unsummon is also pretty okay if you're aggressive, and Codex really prefers removal to threats. Codex benefits from longer games rather than shorter games, so you have more time to do its thing, and benefits from smaller games rather than larger games so that its thing is more relatively impactful. So anytime it's close, if I'm trying to maximize Codex, I want to take a removal spell over a creature. So while Rootwalla would be likely stronger in exactly the like domain spells aggro deck, I think that the Codex pick as my first opportunity to move into my deck having like a real output now puts me in a different space where the Vortex is a lot stronger without ruling out the possibility of being the aggro deck, which can also still use the Vortex. I don't think you want 2 Codex in all but the most extreme circumstances. And I also think that Impulse goes slightly down in value when I have Codex, as all card draw goes down in value when I have Codex. I want to spend my mana impacting the board rather than finding more cards, because the Codex is giving me all the more cards that I need. Impulse also works as mana fixing, but again, I'm still kind of ahead of where I need to be on fixing at this point. So took the Root Wall here as a strong, cheap play. Interesting to note how badly 17 lands is botching my potential main deck at this point. Here's a bunch of spells I don't really care about, so I take a good dual land. Another really clear dual land pick. Soaring Drake's not awful, but it's, I think, pretty mediocre in this kind of deck. I would much rather have the dual land, especially now that I know that I have the Rona's Vortex, so the black is useful. This is Artillery Blast over Meteorite. My mana is good enough that I don't need Meteorite, and I'm looking for cheap removal, so I'm happy to pick up the Artillery Blast. Here, I mentioned how Essence Scatter can be awkward, similar situation with Negate. I also already have a Negate, so as mentioned, looking for cheap removal. Bite Down fits the bill. I have like Haughty Djinn, Librarian, Sojourner are all respectable biters. Question about Cavalier. I don't. Oh, over. That'd be Cavalier over Tangled Islet. Yeah, I currently have no white cards. I'm currently splashing white just for domain off a single white dual land. Cavalier, I think, wants you to reliably have early white. While it wouldn't be embarrassing to play in my deck if I had a few more white sources, it's not something I want to go out of my way for, and I don't want to play it in a deck that has 4 or 5 white sources. Whereas Islet is really the perfect tool for my, Root Wall Haughty Djinn deck. Really happy to see a great dual land this late. Academy Wall is a card I would be fine playing this deck, but I don't think that it needs to be prioritized here. This is a spot where I can imagine some people would get nervous about already having 8 dual lands, and I just I was pretty confident I'd be able to find enough playables, and I think that the improvement of Ridgeline over a basic is bigger than the improvement of Academy Wall over whatever else I'll find. Similar situation here. It'd be okay to play Branch Rider, but it's not in any way on plan. Yeah, I just went for the dual land. Sea Scavenger, I think, is actively good in my deck at this point. I'm really looking for a couple key cards. My Codex and rares. And this is also very good at finding missing colors. And I'm going to be domaining for a lot pretty early. So this is the ceiling for Sea Scavenger, which is not a card I'm usually excited about playing. So of course I'm happy to see another one. All right, and I open Solkanar. My deck does not use Solkanar well. I don't have free ways to sack it or anything. I don't think that matters at all. I basically never see games get to the point where Solkanar would go to the opponent. It is really, really hard to just let your opponent keep a Solkanar in play through getting all of its triggers. And you never know if your opponent is holding a Bone Splinters or something where they'll be able to throw it away if you try to let them keep it long enough to take it. So I don't think you need to worry about having support for Solkanar the way that you might need to worry about having support for Demonic Pact. I think this card is just a bomb, if you can cast it. In gameplay, you might prioritize playing a different 5-mana spell before you play this, so that it's more likely that the game is ending before you need to worry about it. But as far as like needing to draft around it, I don't think that's a thing. Um, anyway, looking for bombs, can cast anything pretty easily. Solkanar's great here. So yeah, really, really easy pick. This is this pick was between Protect the Negotiators and Vohar in terms of power level. Both are slightly awkward splashes. Like I'm not really uh, well set up. My current cards aren't planning to have early black mana or early white mana, uh, but um, but I think that Vohar works much better in my deck. It's it lets me reuse a removal spell. I'm looking for more removal. It can potentially like get rid of cards that I can't cast or whatever. Like looting is good when you have like shaky mana. Not that I think I do. Protect the Negotiators is better when you have reliable early white mana with early creatures. I'm a little low on early creatures and low on early white mana, so I think this is a like rough spot. Also, everything that I was saying about Essence Scatter and it being hard to leave up mana and stuff. This is a rough spot for Protect the Negotiators, and not that rough a spot for Vohar. Clearly, at this point with Solkanar, I'm pretty much solidly in bombs and removal domain, not tricks aggro. I have like good rares. I have cards that find my good rares. I have removal. I'm not looking to like pivot back into a colossal growth spot here. It's a request to turn off the show picks for the moment. Can do that. So here, cards that stand out to me are the dual lands, Destroy Evil, I guess Cut Down, but I think Destroy Evil is just a better removal spell than Cut Down. I think Destroy Evil is super important. Just anytime you're trying to play a control deck or literally can cast it, I don't really care how easy it is. If you can cast it, if I can cast it, I want it in my deck. Great to be able to get back with Vohar. Destroy Evil is just amazing. So, of course, that's what I took. Here is a really weak pack. I believe I took the Rootwalla because there are no other cards that I would want in my deck. Rootwalla here is, pretty good. I am looking for cheap cards that are impactful to keep my curve low for Codex. Rootwalla is cheap. I have lots of duels, so it becomes impactful. Keeping my curve low for Codex also means keeping my curve low for Rootwalla so that I can afford to spend mana activating it. This is actually the best non-aggro Rootwalla deck that I've had. The Rootwalla has played really well here. So to answer some questions I'm getting, question about Necromass. Without any self-mill and not a super high creature density, I don't count Vohar as self-mill here. I don't think Necromass is going to be very cheap or castable very early, so it's more at odds with Codex. And I think that Rootwalla, for all the reasons I've been saying, I think Rootwalla is a particularly good fit here. So while I do generally prefer Necromass as a card to Rootwalla, though I think that's debatable, I think Rootwalla is a lot better here. Question about where I am mentally with Hotijin at this point. Same as always. I think it's a great card. I think it's going to be good in my deck. I think my mana supports casting it pretty easily, and I'm still prioritizing enough removal spells to make it good. It's not going to be like the ceiling of Hotijin-ness. Like, it's not going to be as explosive as it is in like blue-red spells, but I think it's reliably going to be a 3/3 or 4/4 flyer that saves me some mana. So I think I'm going to be happy to draw and cast it all the time. This pick, there are a lot of powerful cards here. like Knight of Dusk Shadow, but of course I am not going to pass a Destroy Evil index like this. I need like a legitimate bomb to take something over Destroy Evil. Okay. I wouldn't call Terra Sunder a legitimate bomb, but already having 2 Destroy Evils, I did think that the flexibility on Terra Sunder was enough to take over Destroy Evil here. I think this pick is close, even given where I am, because I do think most of the time I'm going to be spending 4 mana to kill something that Destroy Evil could kill for 2 mana. But exiling is valuable, and just having more different kinds of removal spells is valuable. So I took the Terra Sunder over the Destroy Evil here. Getting Urtai Resurrected this late is awesome for me. Very surprising, although I did see in pack 1 that both black and blue-black, and each blue and black were relatively open this draft, so it's not like super shocking, but I'm obviously in a really good position to take advantage of it. My deck's already just like kind of hanging out and looking for bombs. This isn't like a I win the game by myself bomb. It's closer to a 2-for-1, even if it's not exactly that, but really great to see. This pick is another Rootwalla for the same reason that I took Rootwalla over Necromass before. This is between Tribute and Sojourner. Both are really good here, and I honestly don't remember which one I took. I think it's really close. I think that this deck is using Sojourner well and looking for like creatures that live through the Elder Dragon War. I also think that I have enough black that I can cast the Tribute. I'm really not sure. Okay, I went for Sojourner. I stand by this is really close. I don't know which is right. I'm not super confident in the Sojourner over the Urborg here. But yeah, but I went for the Sojourner. This is a bunch of cards I'm not planning to play. I took the Bog Badger here because it's the best of them. Nice to get a free duel super late. Obviously took that. Here I took the Mesa Cavalier because I thought I might want to side in gain 2 life. I realized as soon as I clicked on it that the Sea Scavengers are merfolks. I don't think that would have changed anything though. Another Badger, and then a stick. And so the deck that I built was this. I think this deck was really good. Has a really good mix of removal, good cheap threats. I managed to keep my curve low to take advantage of Codex and the Rootwallas. I have great mana. And yeah, I think this deck looks a little bit weird when you see it laid out like this. You know, it's just like a really wonky curve where it's just a million 2s, and I don't know, something about it just looks strange to me, but it played really well. I think that, you know, even though it's just kind of 5-killer good stuff, there's actually like a lot of what I'll call synergy / plan, like the keep just like the way that the deck interacts with mana and how that like fits with Codex and Rootwalla makes a lot of sense. Question about would I have played a second Codex? It's a good question. I certainly would have sided it in sometimes. I don't know if I would have played a second one, and I don't know if it would have been right. I've never tried playing 2. I've rarely played 1, so I don't know if I'd feel bad about it. I really don't know if you should here. And Kyle Thulu, thank you so much for the subscription. Really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to stop recording. So anyway, thanks for watching, YouTube. I will be posting another video shortly with my second draft from the Open. I spoiler-ish, I've already tweeted about this, did win both drafts. So check the next video for that.